Today's interview is with Dr. Thomas-Olivier Léautier, the Director of the Corporate University for Management and Chief Economist of Électricité de France. Dr. Léautier has more than 20 years' experience in the electric power industry, both as an academic researcher and as a practitioner. In addition to his role as Director of EDF Group Université for Management, Léautier is the Research Director at the Toulouse School of Economics. Thomas-Olivier Léautier took up his position at EDF in January of 2017. The group university that he oversees is responsible for honing the skills of 22,000 managers and directors in France and globally. Its programs also include the rollout of EDF's CAP 2030 strategy, and it plays a vital role in implementing managerial changes within the EDF group. His research has encompassed energy in general and the electricity sector in particular, including regulation and the challenges that the university has to deal with. He is the author of a large number of publications in this field. Thomas-Olivier Léautier has also worked as an energy market consultant at McKinsey, a risk manager at Alcan, and was also with the World Bank. Thomas-Olivier has degrees from the École Polytechnique and the École des Ponts et Chaussées, as well as a PhD in economics from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He is tasked with optimizing the training courses available and is in charge of plans to change the group's management culture. Welcome, Dr. Léautier.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be with you and your community.
Let's jump right in. What is the mission and organizational and physical structure of the EDF Corporate University for Management?
So the mission of the corporate university is essentially threefold. The first one is to build the skills, and in particular the managerial and leadership skills of our managers, our high potentials, the people we believe will become executive, but also the executives of the group. And the final community we serve are the project managers. So for all of those groups of people, we develop training programs that help them get better, develop their project leadership skill, their role leadership skill, their managerial skill, their understanding of the businesses, their understanding of strategy, their understanding of finance. We also train them to conduct a transformation of their organization, because there are rules and there are ways to make that work well and not well. So that's the first mission, is about building up some skills. The second mission is essentially around creating a common managerial culture. As you know, the large corporations, EDF is a fairly significant corporation, about 160,000 people, a large chunk based in France, but some of them based in the UK, in China, in America, and other geographies. Different businesses. Some people are working in the upstream in generating power. Some people are working in networks. Some people are working in developing new projects, be them renewables or not. Some people are working in customer care. So there are very different operational culture, and the corporate university bring those people together. So our training programs are also a way for people from different parts of the business to get together, to get to know one another, and to build a common culture. And the third mission is really around transformation. Large companies like EDF, large utilities, we transform ourselves to adapt to the new world. And managers, you can have very good managerial experience, very good operational managers, but they don't really know how to transform the organization. So we bring them support, either by training them. So we have a very large training program on what are the 4 steps of transforming an organization, it's a guy called Cotter, was teaching at HBS, Harvard Business School, was developed that framework, and we use the Cotter framework. So that's one thing. And the second thing is sometimes we come in and we work with the leader of the group, defining his transformation strategy, suggesting partners that he can work with to unlock some specific issues. So those are the three different topics: skills building, common culture, and transformation. And that's how we intervene. Now, in terms of, you asked, what is the size of the organization and the structure? We're about 20 people. It's a very small team by EDF standards. It's about slightly bigger than some of my European peers, but it's about 20 people. We're based in Paris. And before COVID, we were all coming to the office in Paris. And now since COVID, we commute back and forth. And some of us work at home a couple of days and come back to the office 2 or 3 days a week. That's it.
So how is the corporate university for management, how is it similar to, and how is it different from an academic university's Center for Entrepreneurship?
So I think one of the first differences, which I think is, in my opinion, the most important, is we do not intend to do research or aim. I know as the Center for Leadership, at any university, you have the teaching, which is developing the skills of people, but you also have the research, better understanding of the world, better understanding of management practices, problem, that we don't do. That second bit we don't do. We don't have a claim to improve knowledge on management and leadership practices. We take what we view as best practice and apply it to EDF, but we don't do research. The second part, which is that the second difference, I think, is that we were very focused on solving EDF's problem. So to give you an example, over the last, I'm going to give you 3 examples. One of them is decarbonation of the economy. I mean, EDF, we are a power company, we produce electricity. We are the forefront of getting to net zero and the green economy. So we need all of our managers and all of our leaders to really understand what it means. And I think it's a slightly different focus than a general university where you'll cover different topics. I mean, in that case, we have to focus on EDF issues. Decarbonization is one of them. A second issue which we focus on, which is specific to EDF, is transformation. We need to accelerate the pace of transformation, so we do that. And the third issue, which I think is faced by many organizations, is just digitalization. With COVID, a lot of our work has switched to digital, and our job as a corporate university is to help our managers do that. And that, I think, that particular focus on solving all problems, EDF's problem, is probably different from what you see at other universities.
What are the courses on entrepreneurship training at EDF, the university, and how do they differ from the way that academic universities train students?
The thing about entrepreneurship in large corporations like EDF is that it's really, there are two aspects to it, and I think it's a bit different from what universities could do. The first one is probably very similar. The second one is very different. The first one is to just train people in what is innovation. It may sound odd, but a lot of companies, large corporations like EDF, a lot of our time is spent not so much innovating, but it is really spent operating machines, running processes, talking to clients. So a lot of our work, a lot of our hours are not about innovation, they're just about making it happen. Of course, as you make it happen, you do, and you do improve here and there, you do innovate a bit, you do improve a process, but by and large, a lot of our work is about making it happen. And because we work with very complex machineries, there's a big focus on making it happen in a very safe manner. There's making no mistakes. So that's the mindset of most of our people. So the first thing we do at a corporate university is say, okay, well, at some point you're going to have to innovate. And to innovate, you're going to have to take risks and you're going to have to accept failure. So there's all this bit about teaching them why innovation is different, what are the pros, when you need to apply it, and how you need to make it work, both for you as an innovator, but also for your manager, that they understand that you may fail and that's normal, that's part of the process. So there's something about teaching. And that I think would be the same thing in any university, except that our population comes with a bias against failure. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we incubate. That is, we have innovation projects, and a lot of our activity is just to take them and incubate them, help them get there faster. And by doing so, teaching them about the different steps in the innovation, how to do business plan, how to quick test, minimum viable products, all that good stuff. We teach them in the context of their innovation. So that's what we do. And I guess it's slightly different than in academia, but maybe not.
How has your role changed in the past 5 years since you became the head of the university at EDF in 2017?
I don't think it's so much my role as a person that has changed. It's more the role of the university. The first thing we did was to clarify our offering, to simplify, to streamline our offering. And I think it was very important to say, what is it we do exactly? And we came up, that's our view, but I've checked with some of my peers, it's not an unreasonable view, is to say, well, we focus on some target population and we support those target populations. We define clearly what are our targets. And we organize ourselves around the key managerial transitions. So you become a first line manager, you get an 18 to 24 month program for the corporate university to help you settle in your new role. You become a second line manager, same thing. You become an executive, you run a little business, same thing. You become a senior executive, you run different businesses and different units, same thing. So the idea, what has changed is that we're very clear about you're going to undergo a transition in your career that will require new leadership skill, that will require a deeper understanding of the industry. We are going to help you making that transition a success. So that's one of the things that has changed. The other thing that has changed is we focus a lot more on transformation. It's a word you've heard me say many times, but we think it's very important for guys to really understand how to transform a business. And it doesn't mean, taking it from west to east, but it means, you want to change something and there's a way to do it. And then there's another change, which I think all of us have undergone, which is digitalization. When I joined a corporate university, most of our training is you put guys in a room, you identify a great teacher, you put them in a room for 2 days, you give them some wine and you let them do their stuff. Today, it's completely different. I mean, today it's you have to decide all of the downstream, all of the top-down teaching is done digitally. Oftentimes it's done in a non-synchronous manner. We have videos, we have short, long, videos to do that. We have quizzes. So a lot of it is done digitally. And then when we get people in a room, it's really for them to interact and to do something together that they wouldn't be able to do digitally. And that is a massive transition in terms of teaching, but also for the people in my team. The people in my team, previously, there would be the guys who tell you which is the best expert on this particular subject and bring it to the room. Today, it's a different game. It's about how do we collate the best nuggets, the best digital nuggets to make this course, and how do we attract people? How do we market our offering to our participants? So it's a real transformation in our business way. And I think, by the way, we feel it. Most of my peers do feel it, and I'm pretty sure the universities, the universities, non-corporate universities, the standard universities also feeling it.
So it's just dovetailing on that. What would you say that what would you tell academic professors? What can they learn from what you're doing, your initiatives that could be applied at universities?
Well, I think there is really something around, and I'm going to give you a very personal example. I still teach one course about electricity market. It's a very advanced course about some of the finer points in electricity market design and how it interacts with policy making and politicians' decision-making processes. And we used to do that with a colleague of mine who's a senior consultant in France. We used to do that physically in Florence, in Italy, which was also a great opportunity to spend a weekend in Italy, which was always good and welcome. And we had to take that digitally because of COVID. And I think I learned a lot from what we had done at the corporate university around how do you structure a digital offering? You know, how do you make it? What do you say digitally? How long it should be? What are the themes? How should you break it down? How should you make it attractive? What kind of quizzes do you do? And we thought about a course in a completely different fashion by just, you know, giving ourselves a degree of freedom to say anything that is me droning on a topic, I don't have to be in the room to do that. And the students can learn from the videos on their own, at their own leisure. If I'm not clear, they can listen to me 2 or 3 times until they really get it at their pace. And I can give them a few quizzes for them to make sure that they figure out what I was trying to say. And frankly, that has given better results than the physical training. Of course, we lose the opportunity to get together physically and to meet and greet and to get to know people and maybe make connections that will last for a while. You know, we don't build a community of peers, but in terms of the raw knowledge acquisition, I think it worked better. So I think for universities, and a very good friend of mine is president of a college in Chicago, and he says, well, you know, we have to unbundle the knowledge bit and the community building bit. We have to say, you know, there's something about we're going to give you new skills or improve your knowledge, but also, and especially that's true for colleges, we're going to help you become adults. And that is part of the community building. And I think universities can unbundle those two aspects and get better at actually both.
Great insight. What are the performance metrics for the corporate university for management? And, you know, why are those metrics important to measure?
So this is a very big debate, and I'm not completely aligned with my peers. So I'm going to give you my version of it, and I'll try to. Maybe before I give you my version, I'm going to preface that by the common wisdom in the teaching profession, especially in the corporate teaching profession, is a Kirkpatrick scale. So there are 4 scales. You know, are people happy? Do you have impact? Do they change their behavior 6 months after? And does it make money for the company? And so there's a scale, and that's how you measure impact. So you do survey of people. You know, I give you the course of getting feedback, giving feedback to people. You take that course. Do you enjoy the course? Do you think you learned something? How do you evaluate? That's 1 and 2. 6 months later, I ask your peers, is Thomas or Philip getting better at giving feedback? Yes or no? And then I look at the bottom line of your unit and I say, well, you know, since Thomas or Philip came to this course, did that improve the bottom line? And those will be the Kirkpatrick scale of measurements. So I think it's very hard to, so some of my peers, they run those tests and they give them that as a metric. And every year they measure themselves against those metrics and they say, you know, are we doing? I think it's very hard to do. And I think I'm a scientist by training, so I think there's a lot of measurement biases associated with that. And just to give you an example, the price of electricity in France went to about $440 a megawatt hour to about $200 a megawatt hour. The numbers do not matter, but the price went up by 5. So no surprise, the profits of EDF didn't go up by 5, but they increased dramatically. So if I'd done my Kirkpatrick this year, I would have said, look, everybody make more money, so somehow my training is responsible for it. But that would be faulty, right? That would not be a legitimate inference. So I'm not too hot on that. So what we do, my primary metric is number of hours. And I understand it's an input metric, it's not an output metric. It's an input into the development process. But for me, I think it's one metric. I like it because I just want to have one metric. Large organizations tend to have multiple metrics, and I think it's complicated. I want to have one more metric. And my guess is that, if people come to our programs, if our number of hours goes up, is that people like what they do. They like what we do. They like what they do when they come to us. And somehow we are delivering good quality with our programs. Otherwise, people would not come and we wouldn't get the hours. So that's the metric I track and I use. Now, I understand it's limited and it's biased, but at least it gets me a sense that we're making progress. The other point is, I think we need to have metrics in corporate universities. I think they're absolutely necessary because for two reasons. A, it helps you, two reasons. A, it helps you build with your team, focus your team on something. That's helpful, you give them a sense of what you're trying to do. And the second reason, it helps to communicate with your bosses. At the end of the day, corporate university, by and large, is the cost center. So, when money is tight, when corporations are retreating, there is a tendency to cut on training costs. So you need to have a very clear performance contract with the rest of the organization that you're going to deliver that much training for that much dollars. And that I think is very valuable.
For the EDF employees with innovative ideas, how does the university guide them so that they are compatible with the overall goals and strategies of EDF?
Yeah, so the way we do it, again, innovation, there's the innovation, there's a guy that has an idea. And then to turn that into true change, two things need to happen. A, the innovator needs to be guided in the development of his idea. And that's where our incubation program comes in. Mm-hmm. So we had historically an incubation program, and because it has been successful in the past, it has been scaled up. And now we've created EDF an innovation division, which encompasses the incubation, but also all the way to the participation in corporate. So our corporate venture capital fund is lodged in this innovation division, so we can both incubate our small innovation. We can also fund our startups, our internal startup, but we can also participate, take shares in external startups. So we have this innovation pool, and our role as the corporate university is to provide a training for that innovation groups. The other thing that is required for an innovation to take hold is the recipient entity, or where the innovation will apply, to be welcoming and to be nurturing and to accept that innovation. And that's where we as a corporate university don't have a direct say, but we spend a lot of time teaching and training managers about the values of innovation and why it's important and why you need to grow and so on and so forth. So we work both with the innovators, training them, but also with the managers and the executive, telling them how important innovation is. And one of the things that we did, which I thought was very helpful, is to actually bring people to Silicon Valley. So for a few years now, we've gone to Silicon Valley and we've seen the incredible innovation machine. At some point, I even took the XCOM, so the top 10 people in the company, took them to the Silicon Valley for 2 days and they experienced what innovation is, and they came back even more convinced that it's important for the growth of the company. So that's how we try to foster innovative culture within EDF.
How can a corporate university influence the culture at a corporate enterprise to be more innovative and entrepreneurial?
So it's an excellent question, and I think there are there are different levels of answer. The first level of answer is that for any corporate university, what you can do is to accompany the executive committee vision for the company. So I could teach innovation until Christmas. If the executive committee is not convinced it's an important thing to do and doesn't say, this is what we want to see happen in the company, it's not going to happen. So the first thing is, does the executive committee think that this is an important issue and do they want to drive that through the company? And if that's the case, then the corporate university can play a role. Now, the corporate university can also play a role convincing the executive committee, but that's a little rarer. In general, the CEO or the executive committee say, this is important, this is what we want to do. And then as a corporate university, you come. Now, once you're in, once they tell you we want to make innovation happen, we believe there are two training modules or two set of themes that are helpful. The first one is provide the context. Why do we need to innovate? Because if we don't innovate, we're going to die. We're not going to die today, but the industry is changing. There are new technology, and by the way, it's completely true in the power industry, and I think it's true in most industries that there's a dramatic transformation in the competitive landscape, and only highly innovative corporation will survive the onslaught of new and more agile entrants. Case in point, the auto industry. The auto industry for years said, we do not believe in electric cars. I do believe that, and I could be wrong on that, but I believe that Elon Musk's net worth today is higher than the market value of all of his competitors. So, as a corporate university, your role is to tell everybody in the organization, you don't innovate, some guy is going to come and his net worth is going to be higher than the market value of all the utilities in the world. So that's the context. And then the second thing is what we discussed, which is to create a cultural environment, to show them the method, to help them understand that failure is acceptable, but that the failure is acceptable as long as you learn from your failure and you have key learnings that you can take into the next step and so on and so forth. So that's how we do it.
This wouldn't be a current interview if we didn't bring up COVID. So
sure,
COVID has forced us to operate virtually. How has your university migrated to more virtual offerings for your managers and employees globally? What are some of the new technologies that you've implemented, as a result of COVID?
So the corporate university, a fascinating thing happened during COVID is that before COVID, we were about 70% physical, 30% digital. Mm-hmm. And during the year of COVID, we completely switched that. And we went from 30% physical to 70% digital. That was to 2020, 2021. We were not holding physical classes for the first 9 months of the year. So we're 99% digital for the first 9 months of the year. So we didn't lose any hour between 2019 and 2020. We just took all of our offering and turned it digital. It was, it was quite an undertaking. And a couple of observations. We did that because, and I think it's important, the crisis gave meaning to a lot of the people in my team to adapt and change their offering. There is a way, since we're back against the wall, people who told me we cannot teach this course digitally, you understand it's so important to be physically present. When COVID struck, they just told me, okay, it's done, it's digital. And I didn't ask them, why wasn't it done before? Because it would not have been helpful, but the crisis created a lot of energy in turning everything digital. So at the beginning, it was just awful, right? We would literally put the teacher in front of a Zoom screen or in front of a Teams screen and have the guys say the same thing. It was nasty, but progressively, we learned that 45 minutes is long enough on screen. And after 45 minutes, you could see the guys dropping off from the screen. So we said, okay, 45 minutes is the limit. oh, by the way, we can create small teams. So over the course of the last 18 months, we have learned, experimented, and there's been miserable failures. But we've learned, we've experimented what's good days, bad days, new software that were very promising. There was something in France called Klaxoon, which is a digital board. It has worked in some instances, does not work in other instances, but all that good stuff. And we've been able to turn, again, most of our offering into digital. Now, we don't want it to take it too far because we think people still need to get together because we want people to build personal relationship. We want people to get to know other ones. And frankly, the physical, nothing beats the physical interaction to get to know people and to build your network of peers and to build a community of peers that are going to be helpful to you and that will be a support group throughout your career. So you don't want to go 100% digital. You still want to do physical. But we're very careful as to when we bring the people together, it is really for them to have a physical experience and really an experience that they could not have had digitally. Because if we don't, and we are not always very successful, at some point, some participant come to me and say, look, I took a train, I was 4 hours in the train and the bus and the subway to come to this class. And frankly, I could have done that from the comfort of my home online. So, we have to find the right balance that when we bring people together, they really say, wow, that was really worth it. And really, I couldn't have done it otherwise. So that's our take of COVID. By and large, it has been for us a terrific experience because we've been able to experience new things. We've been able to train new format. It has been terrific for us. It's been terrific for the team because the challenge has actually brought us closer together. Now, as a professor, I'm also a professor, I realized digital format forces me to change my business model because I cannot get paid by the hour anymore. I mean, it's an important thing. You don't get paid by the hour anymore because more often than not, you record your video and once it's out there, you don't get to repeat it and get paid by the hour. So it's better for me because I don't have to repeat the same thing 50 times. From an intellectual perspective, it's better. From a financial perspective, it's not as good because I don't get to bill 50 hours. So there's a change, and I think it's going to take time for everybody to adjust to this new format and to the new economics it creates. That's it.
Yeah, fascinating. The last question, Thomas. Over the next few years, how do you see entrepreneurship and innovation programs evolving at EDF, but also more broadly, universally and globally? How do you see entrepreneurship and innovation changing and evolving?
I think I'm going to tell you what I think and what I hope. What I think, I think the energy transition, there's just to give you some numbers. I'm going to talk about my industry, right? The energy industry, which I know very well. Currently, 80% of our energy is fossil fuel based. It's about 30% of coal, 30% of oil, 20% of gas. Take a few, make or take a few. So 80% of the energy we consume emits CO2, and of course CO2 is very bad for the planet. So over the next 30 years, ideally, we should get to net zero. If we don't get to net zero over 30 years, it's bad. If we don't get to net zero over 50 years, it's really, really bad. It is just terrible. That context to say between now and 30 to 50 years, we're going to have to completely transform our energy system. Completely. 80% is fossil fuel based. In 2050, we want to be 0% fossil fuel based. Or not completely 0% because there's going to be some carbon capture somehow, but close to 0%. So that's a dramatic transformation of our industry. And that will require a ton of innovation. I mean, there are going to be innovations everywhere because you cannot go from A to B without completely innovating. New design for nuclear power plants, new design for hydrogen plants, new design for boilers, new design for everything you have we're going to have to redesign it. Electric vehicles, charging devices, I mean, everything. So innovation is going to be prevalent. And that's what's going to happen. And there are going to be two kinds of companies. Well, there are going to be three kinds of companies. There are going to be new entrants, the startup, the Silicon Valley guys who are going to come and develop new technologies. And among the incumbents, there are going to be two kinds of companies. There are going to be companies who are able to innovate and actually get to leverage their know-how, their expertise, their engineering knowledge, their general knowledge to participate in this endeavor and benefit from the energy transition. And there are going to be companies who are not going to be able to innovate and they're going to die. I mean, nobody knows about Nokia today. Nobody remembers about, I think it was called, what is it? The Palm Pilot company?
BlackBerry.
I think it was called BlackBerry. There's BlackBerry, there was a Palm Pilot. I mean, all those, we don't hear about them anymore because they didn't innovate fast enough and they just died. So that's what I think is going to happen. Some companies are going to innovate, and the large companies are going to innovate, are going to do multiple things. We know what they need to do. They need to have entrepreneurial innovation inside. They need also to accept to buy innovation from the outside. They need also to foster competition among a network of suppliers or universities and so on and so forth, and get the best ideas coming from the outside and recognize that, it's not our ideas, but it's a great best idea, and we're going to now develop it. The pharmaceutical companies are very good at that. They don't do a lot of inside research. They do a lot of purchasing, and then once they get a molecule that looks like it's going to work out, they're actually very good at turning that into a medicine, because that's what they do for a living, right? They're very good at that. And I think in the energy industry, there will be companies that are very open at innovation, that are going to have good innovation inside, good R&D, but also great link with the outside to innovate. That's what I believe is going to happen. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, what I hope for my company, EDF, is that we fall in that category, and we're able to find it in ourselves to open ourselves to external ideas, to get the best of external ideas, and to create that virtuous dynamic that gets us to be a successful participant in the energy transition. And that's what we try to do as a corporate university, is encourage that to happen, encourage that and make it happen as much as we can. But it's the power industry. There's never been a better time to be in the energy industry. There's so much happening right now. There's so much innovation. There's a ton of money pouring in from venture capitalists. It's just great. That's it.
Dr. Léautier, thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts and your insights. And I look forward to sharing this interview with the trusted peer entrepreneurship community. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.